Hey everybody, welcome to Adobe Live. My name is Flynn and I'm joined once again by Michael Black. Hey Michael, how are you doing?
Hey Flynn, doing good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. It's been a week. We did part one last
Yeah.
week and it was a lovely Friday in Sydney then, and it is a lovely Friday again today. So wonderful that you could join us. We're going to hang out for an hour. We're going to do a bit of a recap on what we did last week in case you missed it, so don't worry, we'll catch you up. But let's say hi to our friends in chat. Great to hang out with you again. Feels like it's been forever. We're doing these weekly streams now. We've gone from daily to weekly, and I miss you guys. Sam Peterson, great to see you. I've been catching a lot of your streams and also the streams you've been modding, so that's been awesome. We've got Festus in the house. We've got Johanna in the house. Super awesome. If you guys are watching this on YouTube or anywhere else, jump over to behance.net/live if you want to join the live chat. We'll be taking your questions. We're here for a short time and a good time. We've got a Q&A break in the middle, all sorts of stuff. And we're learning about paint, something a bit different today. I think so often, certainly in my case, like a lot of the things that I draw or create never leave my device, right? They never leave my screen, certainly don't make it onto a wall. So it's so cool to be able to talk to you about this and kind of get this inside knowledge on how to make things look good on a wall. So I'm pretty pumped.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's super important sort of tool that you can take our digital stuff and then bring it into sort of a physical space. It's really cool.
Yeah.
So just if you want to, we'll recap a bit what we did last week.
Yeah, let's do a recap.
Essentially, So essentially what we did last week, we created our illustration, and this could be anyone's illustration or artwork that they want to put on the wall. And I'll just flick over to Photoshop. So if you can just pull over to Photoshop with me.
Let's do it.
If you wanted to learn more about this, you can head back over to our other video. And essentially we've got our illustration right here. This could be our artwork or whatever we wanted to do. And we've created this through sketching and then blocking in our colors. And then we've actually taken a photo of our wall that we want to do, and we've prepped our wall. We've put random little marks, as you can see here, these little sort of tape marks, or it could even be little squiggle marks that you do. It's just for a reference point. And then we've copied our illustration layer, we've put it on top, and we've actually transformed it so it fits in the space in perspective. And today we can actually go through some of the techniques of how we paint our wall. But last week we were just kind of mocking it up and getting it ready for the wall. So as you can see here, we've got our reference point to our illustration to the wall. And normally what I do, I just lower the opacity on this top layer. So just bring it down. And we can see here that this tape mark equals the top of this point. And then this mark here is kind of the center of this. And then this mark here is that. So this gives me a reference point when I'm going to the wall. No matter how big or awkward the wall is, I can still have a look at this, and I'll normally send this to myself on my phone. And if I need to adjust it, I can even, go back over to Photoshop on my computer, adjust it, and then just resend it to my phone. So it's really flexible sort of model and a way of mocking up a design and getting the right proportions in place. So,
it's a great technique. Like as you're saying, so this wall was quite awkward. You couldn't go so far. You couldn't go super far back.
Totally.
You couldn't even.
That's the wall.
That's the wall. So you can barely kind of get it in shot. So you had to do it with two different photos, which like is a great example of why something like this is like super valuable.
100%.
So it's really interesting. Super cool. And you always go and like take a photo of the wall first, right? Like that's like always like an important step if you can, like to get that shot.
If I can get, so with this method, you do need marks to kind of on the wall to make it as a reference point. So some walls actually have like marks on them, like if it's a really sort of dodgy wall or something like that, it might have marks on there. So you can potentially use those marks as reference points. So you don't actually need to do random little tape marks. I just do this because it saves time. Instead of doing my own marks behind it, I have to paint and cover them back over. So it just kind of gives me a bit more time and flexibility in that way. Just rip the tape off. So but it is just a method, and some people do gridding, some people just freehand it, and this is just a technique, I guess, in the tool belt. So
Nice.
So from here, we're going to jump through a bit of a video time lapse, and we can point out some tips of how to actually paint it. So
Cool.
yeah.
Do you want to go to the first video?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, here we go.
Let's do it.
So this is awesome. So you did this for us, right? This is so cool. So you shot this
Yeah.
you shot this whole video for us of the process of going through here. So guys, if you do have questions, ask as we're going along.
Definitely.
And you tell me, you're driving me. I've got the video over here, but
Yeah, cool.
you tell me what to do.
Well, if we want to jump back a bit, we can
Yeah.
we can kind of go from the start.
Cool.
And so yeah, we've got our wall here, and this is the wall before I've buffed it. I've seen the wall. It doesn't have any indentations or marks, so I don't need to fix anything up in that regard. So that's good. Again, when I'm painting a mural, I want to look at the accessibility. So do I need a scissor lift? Do I need an extension ladder? What's the ground surface like? Because some scissor lifts don't actually work on awkward levels. Or what's the accessibility like? What's the environment around me like? So this is kind of like a bit of a safety check in a way. And also practicalities of how I'm going to paint the wall. Are there going to be people walking by, ECT, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of like a ground level start. Moving from there, I kind of want to prep the ground. So as you can see there, we can skip to the next slide. I've put a drop sheet down, but then underneath the drop sheet, I've put some butcher's paper. And you can get butcher's paper from your local hardware store, or even Woolies or something like that. And this essentially is just to put underneath the drop sheet. And I usually use tape to hold that down and kind of tape it just along the edges of the wall, because during the day, the drop sheet will get pulled here and there and paint splatter will just come down. And it is a massive hassle. I've had times where I've had to stay back and just scrape paint off the ground and that sort of thing. So I learnt the hard way.
It's not fun.
And not fun, definitely under pressure as well. And yeah, it's just do the prep, put in time and save time later. So yeah.
Move on.
So we can move on. Yeah. So yeah, it's just a bit of a close up, as you can see.
It's like giving me like with the paint on there. It's giving me like Dexter vibes. I don't know if you ever watched Dexter, but basically.
Yeah, totally. I know what you mean. Yeah, so that's just like what I do pretty much, and then saves a bit of time later. Yeah. Okay.
Here's the Instagram shot.
Yeah, here we go. The OCD me coming out now, jeez. So pretty much this is my mural checklist, and this is just kind of what I use. Other people might have less or more, just use spray cans or just use house paints or whatever. So just on the left there, down the bottom left, I've got some house paints, and this is exterior house paint. So when you go to your hardware store, there's interior and exterior paint. If you're doing an outside wall, make sure you get exterior, because it does have certain UV solutions in the paint that prevent it from fading and that sort of thing. So yeah, just like last week, I kind of recapped a little bit how I get my colors. I just sort of go to the wall, make a reference to my image and pick the colors out. And yeah, it's got 6 liters there, which is plenty. Moving up from there, I've got some spray cans. This is a brand MTN Montana 94s. They're just a good can. They're low pressure, so if you're starting out, it's quite good. It's not too intense, and they usually come in a great range of colors. And moving up from there, I've got my roller pole, and this is an extension roller pole, so it can go higher or lower. I've got a roller on the top there. I've got some Glad wrap, which I'll explain why I have that later. I've got a tray, and then going into my brushes, I've got 2 small brushes just for little details. I've got 2 fat, 3 medium-sized brushes, which are kind of just for smallish shapes, and a round brush, which is really helpful for cutting back at the very end. I've got a mallet, which is used to actually hit down the tins, because they do have a little rim on them, and you can't, if you push them down, it can be awkward, the paint can dry. So that's just a little tip that can be helpful. Or you don't want to kick it either, because if you kick in the tin, you get paint on your shoe, and then you walk around, there's paint on the ground. So I had that happen. And
I love these like oh yeah, I've done that. I do this because I've learned the hard way.
Yeah, 100%.
Nice.
And I'm still learning. So yeah, I've got a glove there as well, just safety on my hand, just getting spray paint in your nails isn't good. Got some caps, so you can get different size caps with spray cans, and I would just recommend getting the standard cap if you're starting out, and then maybe moving on to like some other, like there's a sharpshooter cap, which is just a thinner cap. We've got some builder's chalk there, so I usually get two different colors. I've got 3 there, just one for actually sketching it, and then one for correcting that sketch.
Right.
And then I've just got some painter's tape. So yeah, so that's pretty much essentially what I kind of use.
What's the difference between builder's chalk and like normal chalk? Is it just like fat? Like, is it bigger?
Yeah.
Is that all it is?
Yeah, builder's chalk will be resistant if it rains and that sort of thing.
Right.
So it doesn't come off as easy. So yeah, it's just kind of different. But if I'm doing an interior wall, I'll just use normal chalk. It's fine as well. Just kind of use builder's chalk for exterior. And you can get that at your local hardware store, supermarket usually. So yeah, you can move on from there.
All right.
If you want. Yeah, so this is a technique that someone showed me. And because I use a single color, what I do, I get the brush, I roll the brush in Glad wrap, and that just keeps it from drying out, keeps it from any air sort of entering into the brush and drying it out. And just pretty much once it's dry, the paint, it's pretty hard to recover. And I just do the same with the roller, just get it, lay down just like a sandwich sort of, and just roll it over. And this kind of like, I can just undo that if I want to go back over with the color and paint back over it. And pretty much for me, this method works. Some people have like a big bucket of water, but just for me, because I use single colors, it does help in that way.
Yeah. So after you've used it, like, after you used it, rather than washing it in water, like you have this Glad wrap technique. And then how long does that keep for? Like, is that for the day?
Pretty much. It can keep for like a while, depending on how tight you do it. It can keep for like, 2 days, 3 days. I think I've had some brushes Glad wrapped really well for like weeks, but yeah, it's just essentially just to keep any air from getting into the paint or from making that paint on the brush bristle dry. Yeah. Because once that dries, it pretty much, the brush is stuffed. So you either want to keep that wet in the bucket of paint somehow and keep some sort of wet paint on the brush, or you want to put it in water, or you just want to clean it. So yeah, so just keep that in mind why you're going through what you're doing. But this is just quick and easy. Like, again, if I had a bucket of water, it just does create another element that I have to kind of worry about. Where am I going to get water from? Some sites don't have water to wash the brushes, some sites don't, like this and that, but everyone's got their method of doing it. So
yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So here I've just got a color called Oolong, which is just a great exterior, sort of blackish, matte black color. This isn't too intense black, but I use a lot. And what I'm doing here, I'm pretty much just rolling out using the paint roller and the extension pole, and I'm just kind of buffing in the back layer. And I'll keep a portion of this paint for the end when I'm going to cut back and do up little bits and details. So yeah, I'm just kind of going down strokes. There's no real sort of method to this. It's just, yeah, a bit of hard work, I guess, before you get into sketching it. So yeah.
Nice.
Just kind of go through that. Yeah, usually like some people use spray guns and that sort of thing. It can be quicker if the surface of the wall is brick or is some sort of concrete that doesn't really work with rollers. But if this is a really nice rendered smooth client's wall, so it was easy in that aspect. So yeah.
Nice. I might just take a question just because we do want questions. Yeah, so we'll give it a pause as we're going along. We have Q&A in like 15, but I think this is a great question. Thanks, Alana, for the question. How do you usually price your murals for clients? The big question. One. How do you get paid?
Yeah, that's it. That's what everyone wants to know. Yeah, so I get this question a fair bit. And what I used to do actually is I used to do like a day rate of my murals. And so I'd usually like plan out kind of what it would cost me in a day. And this would just be, like above kind of $400 a day, and this would just be like a base. But I found that method didn't really work for me. like when I started doing more full-time murals. This was because like it was hard for me to convey to the client how many days I would be on the wall, because some days maybe I would only be there for a couple hours, some days I'd be there for a full like 12 hours. So now I price my murals. I usually get the dimensions of the wall, the square meterage. So whatever it is high by whatever it is wide, and I'll get the square meterage of that wall and I'll charge an amount per square meter.
Right.
And this just is really easy to convey to clients, because they can choose, depending on their budget, what, like that I only have this amount of money, I can't do like this whole wall. Well, like, you know, I can do a section of this wall now, I can do a section of this wall later, but you know, this is what I charge. And it does give kind of like a standard in that way. For your first wall, like I would try and just do a wall, like even if it's just that person will cover your paint, or you'll do it for kind of cheap, because you are building that portfolio. But after you've done sort of like a few murals and you have that portfolio, I would really encourage artists out there not to kind of lower their price or to charge like what you're worth in a way as an artist to the client, and to have that self-respect. Because if you don't have that self-respect as an artist, how can you expect other people to respect you in a way? And again, on that point, once you do a mural for cheap, other people will like say, oh, this guy did a mural for this cheap, this guy did a mural for that. So I'll really kind of encourage you guys to get a bit of a portfolio, have a go, and then start charging a good amount for some murals. So
yeah, and it's interesting, like I think it's important as well, like as you go from beginner, entry level in any field, and then a little bit more professional, is to charge more, because it's important for that industry as well. Whether 100%. It's logo design, you know, illustration, creating t-shirts and stuff, there's a certain 100%. Level, because everyone needs to eat. Everyone wants to be able to do it. So that's always super important too.
Like another point on that, if you have a style that is unique to you, you have a value that no one else has. So for me and my style, I have a certain style and a look that I'm developing, and it's kind of like, this is sort of my brand in a way, and this is what I bring, and that value is like kind of infinite in a way. You can just keep going up and up and up. And I'll really encourage you, if you're looking at getting into murals and you're starting to develop this sort of practice, think about what makes you unique. Think about how you can better separate yourself from other people who are doing similar sort of things, and then just really honing in on what makes you you. And you know, with that, the right clients will come to you in a way, and you'll start doing the work that you like in a way. So you're not really like a jack of all trades, but you're a specialist in one specific style, if that makes sense. Yeah, that makes heaps of sense. Yeah, well said. I like that. That's some solid advice there. I'm going to jump back to the video now. But cool. Keep the questions coming. We'll jump them in. So what I'm pretty much doing here is just buffing on the first layer. Sometimes if the wall is like without a prime underneath, which is without another layer of paint underneath, you will have to probably go through 2 or 3 coats, depending on what sort of background you have behind it. But here it's a nicely already painted wall, and I'm using like a dark color, which doesn't normally need more than like two coats. But I was happy enough to just sort of do 1 coat on this as well, just because of the time period of the video. I had to kind of smash through it. So yeah. So normally my murals would, a size this big would take me around 9 hours. Yeah, so 8 to 9 hours I would kind of leave, and that could be broken up between, you know, 3 hours of prep and sketching, and then maybe the next day I'll come back and finish off the wall. Or like, because of this video, I had to kind of push it and smash it out all in one day. So yeah. That actually brings me to a question Steve had in chat. Said, I noticed the sun was on a section of the wall. I might just pause as we're going through. I noticed the sun was on a section of the wall while you were painting the base, but not a larger section of the wall. Can the sun cause you grief to the point of needing to put up a tarp or something like that? Sun's good, I reckon. I think more sun, the wall dries quicker, and like the paint reacts better under like pretty good lighting, pretty good like sun. Sometimes if it's like an interior, or if it's a bit of a darker space, the paint will take longer to dry. And for my sort of work, I usually try and let like the paint dry before I go in again with another layer. So yeah, but that is another element to consider, like the weather and that sort of thing. And I know a lot of mural artists causes them grief because they're, it'll be raining, it'll be spitting rain half a day, and then they'll get a bit of paint in, and then it'll start raining, and then what they've done will be destroyed. And so yeah, I would definitely recommend just it's tough.
Keeping an eye on the weather. Your weather app is
100%.
Important.
Yeah, get that app open and try and like a day when it's sunny or there's no rain in that way. So yeah, what I'm doing now is I've kind of used the roller to do the main section, and just the little bits that are close to the edge of the wall I've actually taped with some tape. So this prevents us from kind of painting on the ground or a part of the wall that I don't want to. And I'm just grabbing my round brush, which I kind of mentioned before, and loading it up with a bit of paint and just getting a steady arm in there and just kind of using it to cut the top of the wall and just to finish off those little bits and details. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. But again, if you have some really good painter's tape, you could just kind of tape this up and just get the roller brush and do it up there as well. But I think just the awkward angle of this wall was a bit difficult for me as well. Yeah. So yeah, just kind of tape the edge of that wall and knocking it through now. So yeah, it's sun.
Have you ever had yeah, I was gonna say, gotta wear sun cream. Have you ever had someone come up being like, "Hey, what are you doing? Like, what do you think? What do you think you're doing? Like, you're kind of like an illegal wall or something, or?"
Yeah, sometimes. Like, I think it does look a bit more fish when I have like all the paint tins and like all that stuff around, and I don't know. Yeah, I have had people it's weird sometimes what like the general public have just said like, "What is this?" Like, people just speak their mind. They're just like, "This is weird," like whatever. Like, what is this? Like, some people are like, "Yeah, this is mad." Like, you just get random engagement from the public, which I kind of like try to consider in a way, but not be affected by, because people say what they want in a way, and sometimes it's not always helpful to like take that random person's opinion on, especially when you're doing something that you really believe in and you think's awesome. Yeah. So yeah, it's on the phone there.
On the phone. But business call.
Yeah.
Sorry, multitasking.
Multitasking. Yeah. So as I was saying before, this is the method. I'm just kind of putting up random bits and pieces of the brick tape. And here. So this is what I'm looking at on my phone. Let's get back.
I'll go back. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll put these random marks of tape on the wall, and this could actually be in any order, and towards a more detailed piece, this could be more intensified. And I've got my illustration image that I've created, and I've superimposed it with the layers, and I've lowered the opacity, and now this is what I'm looking at on my phone, and this will enable me to have a guide to sketch in my design. And as you can see, the top of that flame is that mark, and this just gives me a reference point. If I'm really up close to the wall, I can't really see the proportions of the shapes that I'm painting in, and you know, this is just a method. So yeah, we can just continue on and watch the sketch.
Yeah, I think that's like the real magic in this. Like, that's like the big kind of takeaway is this technique of that you've done, like, and the fact that it will work on any wall. And I 100%. Of course love like just how you can just stretch it all out, like just change the proportions in Photoshop,
100%.
Stretch it all out, and then you're like, cool, that's your like North Star, that's your guiding light. And then when you get there, it's much more manual. Like, you're not kind of like, 100%. I don't really know, like, is this going to work or anything, because you've already done the like creative, like, I guess the yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. Yeah, I know what you're saying. And as well, if I want to change this design, like let's say I mock it up and I'm like, oh, this is looking weird, I can go in Photoshop and I can move the elements around, and that will enable me I'll still have the same reference guide. So it's really good. And you know, as you can see there, that flame, that's the top of that mark that I just mentioned. And what I'm actually doing as well here is a little tip. That's my wife there. She's helping me film for the day. So good.
And what I'm doing, she's pretty awesome. what I'm doing there, I'm labeling the colors. So as I go along, I'm not gonna, when I finish this process, I won't really have to refer back to my phone again. I'll have all the colors prepped. And then I'll just go in and I'll just focus on painting. And this will just kind of like a little tip to smoothen the process again. And like I mentioned before, I'm using red chalk to correct it. So I might get the gesture in. There's the baby again, my niece.
Nice.
She came along to a bit of she came along to help for the day. And yeah, so with the white chalk, I'm really trying to get the gesture and the shape in the space. I'm not too worried. See, I've gone over it 2 or 3 times, but with that double squiggle there, I've done it, and then I've looked back over it and I've seen that it's not proportion. It's not actually the right reference to the marks, and I've got the other color and I've corrected that. So this just gives me kind of like another chance instead of like rubbing it out and going again. It just gives me that sort of quick fluid motion.
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously it's pretty messy at the moment, and that's where I want it to be. I want more to get the gesture and the feel of the space rather than like making it perfect, and I'm going to clean up those lines at the end. So yeah, so here we go, starting to paint. So I've got my paint out, I've got a medium-sized brush, and I'm just kind of knocking in that green leaf color. And yeah, like I do use a lot of paints in different colors and stuff like that, so it does help having little pots that I pour the paint into sometimes, so I can just hold it and go on the go.
And this is using just like house paint, like this is the exterior house paint
pretty
you're
much,
talking about? Yeah.
This is the exterior house paint, and what some colors do require multiple layers and multiple coats, especially the lighter colors like that mustard or oranges. Very translucent sort of colors do require like 3 or 4, depending on the brand, coats sometimes. And you find like the darker colors, if they're a white base or if they're created with a white base, they're easier. They don't require as many coats. So yeah. So as you can see, I'm going through all of one color. Like I'll try and hit all of the green. I'll try and hit all of the blue on one shot. And yeah, I'm just taking off the marks there. Little rewind of what we're doing.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's just like a little bit of an end process there. But yeah, so I just kind of I'll go through all the blues, I'll go through all the oranges, and then I'll just start that whole process again. So I don't have to like pick up one brush, roll it up in Glad wrap, put it down, pick up another brush. So yeah. Sorry, there's a bit of a smudge there on the camera. Apologies for that.
All good.
So yeah, I'm going to go through a bit of spray paint techniques in a little bit, but yeah, I'm just using a few spray paints to get a bit of like a glow effect as well on the back of the wall, because I'm using a black. Yeah, there's a bit of blue there. So yeah, just a bit of a close up of how I kind of push in. I try and go over the line. That's an important thing. So I don't have to come back and worry about that too much. And I'm just kind of loading up the brush a bit and pushing the paint. I'm not like being too sort of stingy with the amount of paint. I don't want sort of tactile effect. I'm just loading it up and trying to get a clean line using my shoulder instead of my hand. And that kind of helps as well. So yeah.
Yeah, nice. What are you listening to?
Podcasts or Spotify, something, bit of a zone. Do get in a bit of a zone, and yeah, so yeah, can be good just to sort of like get in that zone and just go for it. Yeah. Where we're gone.
We got like maybe a minute for Q&A as well. So if you guys have questions, throw them in chat. We'll ask one or two before we jump into the second one.
Yeah, as you can see there, it's just like very kind of messy. There's a lot of chalk lines, but like I'm not worried about that. I'm just trying to get the right shape and proportion in right. So yeah, using that smaller sort of thin brush to do this little bit up here.
And I think we spoke about it a little bit last week, but where do you get your color palette from? Like, it's like kind of really super bright, interesting colors.
Yeah.
Where do you start with that?
Yeah, so color palettes normally come from just colors that I like in a way, but also like references of like things that I've taken from my sketchbook, or like even yesterday we were on a bit of a walk and I saw two color combos that looked really well. It was like this house and a warm color, the street light kind of mixing together. So, you know, try and pull my inspiration of color choices from the environment around me, or just colors that I feel like go well together and like fit in the space as well. So yeah. And then try and like, this is where that process in Photoshop is really important, because it just enables me to relax when I'm on the wall, because there are a lot of elements that could go wrong. Like you'd have people coming up to you, talking to you, like you could spill a bucket of paint, hopefully not, but just stuff can go wrong. And just having that, like giving yourself less pressure and just doing that preparation is a really helpful thing that I've learned. And it does sort of pay off, one, in the time taken, but also just like you'll enjoy the mural more and won't be as stressed that things are going to go wrong, or like this color doesn't match this color, or this doesn't work this way, because you already know what it's going to look like. And so it minimizes that collateral.
I think that's key, that preparation that you've done already, like the mapping 100%. It out, planning it out, all that sort of stuff.
So yeah, just going through a bit of spray paint there. Like I said before, just kind of have a crack with it and keep the can vertical. Don't tilt it, because sometimes when you tilt it, the paint can come in the side of the can and clog the can. So that's just one tip I would give, and just hold it about 15 to 30 centimeters away from the wall and just go from there. Nice.
Hey, that's the end of that bit. So we've got Q&A. Cool. So let's take a question or two, and then we'll jump into the second half. Time flies. Wow. Steve was asking a follow-up question before, like about the sun, about like all these other elements like coming in and like getting in your way. We spoke about people talking, asking questions, but like anything like insects or anything that land on the paint, like is that anything? Have you ever been sort of like a gust of wind has come up and someone's like freshly cut like lawn has just like stuck to the wall? Anything like that that you got to worry about? Or
I've had I think mosquitoes are attracted to paint. Weirdly. I don't know if other artists have had this experience, but like a fly might just like stick on the wall or something like that. And like I said before, there are all these like kind of uncontrollable elements that can happen on the day. Like you don't know, the weather could come in and it's a bunch of tree, like leaves could fly on the wall. But again, like the more prepped you are and the more sort of prepared you are, the better you can react in that way. So I've had that happen.
Another question that came up was, what's the difference, like in terms of either planning or whatever, any way you want to take it, your process, how is your process different from doing a canvas? Because I think there's one of your canvases behind you, canvas compared to a wall. Like what's the difference?
So I don't really use like that squiggle grid method with a canvas. I'm more just like freestyling it in a way, and just kind of working with what I have and the composition of the canvas. And with my studio work with canvases and stuff, I try and be a bit more experimental. I try and sort of push my work a bit more. And with the mural stuff, I am cautious of like all these other elements that are happening, and like I can't be as experimental in a way where in the studio with the canvas I can kind of like just paint over that or just fix that little bit up quickly. So so it is different in a way. But definitely just that small scale, totally different.
Nice. Good question from Seth. Have you ever had a project held up by weather for a long time, like maybe wind blowing things into the paint?
So many weather questions.
And also, what happens if you make a mistake? Like, do you just paint over it, or do you turn it into something new? It's like a two-part question.
Yeah, that is a two-part question. So weather, yes, stuff goes wrong all the time, and you just got to be flexible. You just got to be creative in a way and learn. And next time, just bang, that was a lesson for next time. Second part of that, the mistakes part. Yeah, like sometimes if something goes wrong, like you mean like more like a color choice or like a stuff of paint shape up or something.
I'm gonna take it like stuffing up, because
Yeah.
I definitely think about that, and I look at how carefully you're doing that sort of thing, and I think about my own like work process and how often I use Command Z. So
Yeah.
what do you do when there's no Command Z?
You can always just paint over it.
Right.
And if you can't paint over it, then you'll have to do something. I don't know, like for my work, I can sort of use the background color. I'll always have the background color. I'll find it, or I'll prepare with it, or I'll paint the wall even if it's already painted. So I can cut back with that background color. I'll let that blob dry, or let that shape dry, and then I'm just going to cut back over that and just take the time to really get it right in a way. And with other people's work, like some people do portraiture and that sort of thing with spray cans, and you can just kind of correct it and you can command Z it in a way, just paint over it and start again.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll keep the questions coming. We'll ask them as we're going along, but we'll jump into the second part just because time always flies like super quick. So this is like kind of the part 2.
Yeah. So I'm about kind of 3 or 4 hours into it now, and I've sketched up the wall. I'm happy with.
Do you bring a little sandwich or something? Like,
yeah,
I'd be worried about leaving the site, right? Like, you wouldn't want to just leave all your stuff there and then go to Macca's or something. Like, you're gonna want to be prepared for a little site.
Yeah, it's a bit like you're a tradie in a way, like just sort of like managing your stuff and making sure that it's safe. So it just like does depend where I am. You know, I'll grab some food if I'm at a shopping center or somewhere like that, and or I'll bring some leftovers, or anyway. So,
or a Bunnings sausage if you have to go back to the hardware store.
Bunnings snag, true. How good. But so just using the spray paint technique here. I'm not being too cautious with it. I'm just sort of going with the flow of my hand, just outlining sort of near the chalk but not being too precise, and then filling in the first little layer. With the spray can as well, you want to kind of move pretty quick, because if you hold it in one place for too long, it will create a drip. And for me in this method, I'm just more wanting to get that kind of glow effect around the shape. So I'm not actually going to cut back with this. I'm just going through with the spray can to create that leaf. So the wall is starting to come together a bit more, and at this stage I am stepping back and just seeing how it is looking. And that's another tip right there I just did. I at the end of if using a spray can, you turn it upside down and press it, because all the paint inside of the cylinder of the can will come out and it will actually clean the nozzle. So that's just one little tip if you're using that. So just kind of getting a few more of the shapes in.
Reverb Mike in chat just talking about, we were talking about like Command Z and everything, so it's just paint, you can paint over it. True. That's true. There was also a question from Festus: how long do your larger brushes last? Will they last a few jobs, or do you replace them each time? I know that from my personal experience, whenever I've had to like paint, like just internally, like had to paint a house, I always feel super guilty because I destroy the brushes, and I'm like, I have to throw all this out. Like there's no keeping it. It seems very wasteful. So can you recycle them, or do you have to move on?
Like if you take good care of them, like if you're cautious of paint drying in the tips of the bristles. Another tip someone told me, which I kind of struggle doing, is that when you have the paintbrush, you have the bristles, and try and not make the paint go all the way up to the tip of the brush. So don't cover the whole bristles in paint, but just do it halfway. So this stops you from like the top of the paint, the top of the bristles, the back end of the bristles from drying out and destroying the brush, because that's what happens. But like back to your kind of comment on it all, like it is hard because you'll buy like 4 or 5 brushes and like there'll be good quality ones, but if you don't like take care of them, either like concealing them with Glad wrap or washing them after you've used them with like paint thinner or some sort of soapy water and warm water, then the paint will dry and they'll get destroyed. But Normally I'll get, like, if I buy a good quality brush, like one of those fatter brushes, I'll get like 4 or 5 murals out of it. So if I take really good care of it, so it's just hard. I would like to kind of say that it's more better than it is, but yeah, if anyone else has got some tips out there on how to treat your brushes better, I'd love to kind of hear that. Yeah.
And hey, this is actually quite pertinent to another question that we got, because you're using like, this is very accurate, trying to get these sharp lines. There was a question, let me see if I can find it, just around how do you get any tips on getting sharp lines with the spray can? And I'm wondering if your answer is going to be if you want sharp lines using a paintbrush. But yeah, how would you answer that question?
Yeah, so spray cans are a different medium, and they are kind of a bit of a different ball game than using a brush. And spray cans, a lot of people don't use spray cans compared to brushes, so there isn't a lot of common knowledge on how to get a straight line or cut back or do anything like that. There are a lot of tutorials online and that sort of thing, which I would encourage you to look at. But just one technique, you can angle the can a bit. You can angle the top of the can, which creates the blow of the nozzle downwards, so you can get a bit of a sharper line when moving across. And that is kind of like a bit of a method some people use. Also, using a thinner nozzle on the tip of the can and moving your hand faster will create a thinner line. Hand closer to the wall, moving your hand steady and fast will create like a sharper line. But it is a hard thing, because a lot of people they've like never touched a spray can before, and they've painted their whole life. And yeah, so like here I'm just doing like a random technique that I kind of have been experimenting with, and it's just doing these random sort of like fast lines, but I am holding the can a bit closer to the wall, as you can see. So it's creating these thinner lines and I'm moving it faster. This video is sped up, by the way, but I am moving the can faster than I would normally when I'm filling it in. So yeah, but I would just encourage you, just kind of go and, there's a bunch of stores out there that offer this sort of product, or buy it online, and yeah, just go and have a crack, just experiment a bit. Just different techniques in that way.
Nice.
Yeah, so getting there. This is probably about 2:33 in the afternoon, so I am kind of conscious of time. I'm just doing another layer there with the oranges, the spray can, and some of the lighter colors that still to be sort of put in. So yeah, just another layer on top of that, darker layer. So yeah.
There's another question as we're going along. Would you usually combine glow and crisp paint lines in one shape?
In one shape?
Yeah, so like I think
same shape, glow, crisp, or like...
Yeah, like combining the techniques. So you're using different techniques on different shapes. Do you ever combine them, or do you like to keep them separate?
Good question. I think, yeah, like you do whatever you want. Like, if there's no rules when it comes to painting, and there's no rules with art, there are techniques, but like you can do whatever you want to do. If you want to like chuck a bucket of paint on the wall, or just go nuts with it, like that's the best. One of the things I love about art, and like there's really no rules in a way, but there are techniques and tools that we use, like Photoshop, or like the squiggle grid, and keeping a clean line compared to a messy line. But in my work, yeah, I do like to keep, like with my murals especially, that sort of like the clean stuff clean, and then when I do messy stuff, I like to do it a bit messy. So it is kind of this mix of abstract but also like contemporary expressionism in a way, if I could use a bit of art lingo. But yeah, so yeah, this is I'm using a smaller brush on this one, and just taking my time with it a bit more, as it is a bit more of a defined shape than the other ones. And I'm gonna obviously have to cut back on that, as there's some messy lines there. But yeah, like if you want to be messy, just be messy, like own it in a way. Like don't be a perfectionist. So yeah, so I'm kind of a bit of a fan of the wall. I have done a few messy bits there, which are intentional, and filled in most of the shapes, just hitting in this kind of clay red color.
RB was asking in chat, Michael, who decides on colors to be used? We spoke a little bit about that.
Who decides?
Yeah, who decides?
Oh, like with the client?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So again, it comes back to that thing. Like if you're an artist that has a particular brand and a style, I would encourage you to try and stick with that as much as possible, because that will give you like the indifference point in a way. But like obviously if a client is really wanting a project that like their colors want to be integrated into it, I guess, you know, there can be some sort of collaboration there. But yeah, I'll have my color choices and I'll have my thoughts on what I think would look best in the space, and that's kind of what the client is coming to me for as well. And I really try and like hold strong on that, and just try and be confident in my choice and what I think looks best in the space. And if you can show your work mocked up, transformed on the wall like we did before, then it does really help give that client a visualization of the mural before we actually go into it. So it's just another sort of service that you can offer.
Yeah. And I assume like if it's like corporate clients, like they might have color palettes, or, you know, even I suppose brand colors, or like a bit of an idea at the beginning. Would they show you like a mood board, or say, hey, we want something kind of like this, or these are our brown colors, we want to keep it close to this?
Yeah, like that is a thing that I've definitely come across. Like a lot, like people will be like, you know, we're wanting it to look like this, or we've got this inspiration pic of this person or this and that. But I think like I might do the job, but I'm not gonna like put too much. I'm not gonna maybe show that in my portfolio. I'll maybe just do the job and move on.
Yeah.
Or
we all have jobs that we don't put in our portfolio for sure.
Yeah, so that's one way of doing it. Or you can pretty much just say to the client, like, look, this is my work. This is what makes me like valuable in a way, and this is what makes me unique, and this is what is actually I'm going to bring to your brand if I use this style or if I use this color palette.
Yeah.
And just being confident in that. And it's like, well, you may as well get a sticker if you're not getting like this artist to bring their unique perspective and their unique brand to your space, because that's the whole value of being an artist and being a mural artist in a way.
Yeah.
So so I'm just actually adding some textures here to one of the shapes with the small brush, and this is just kind of going through just doing little kind of dabs of a bit of a terrazzo effect that kind of use. So nice. So again here, just a bit of a close-up of how I kind of push the paint along, loading up the brush a fair bit, trying to get a clean line and just using a steady shoulder. Yeah, just adding some final little bits and pieces. Like I might have gone off the sketch at this stage and just kind of going a bit more with like my intuition, or like if I feel the wall isn't saying what it needs to say, then I'll go back and keep working on it. So yeah. All right, this stage is the final stage in the process, and it's called cutting back, and what I'm doing is getting the background color of the paint, and I'm using my round brush and a smaller brush, so I can hit it with the big sections, and I can also use a smaller brush to get in little cracks and crevices. And essentially what I'm doing is using a clean line, using my shoulder, not my wrist, and I'm getting a straight line and just cutting back on those bits of the paint that are a bit frail or like a bit messy in a way. So this just, you know, might have to do this a few times on some of the colors, but it kind of makes it sharper, and yeah, here's a bit of a slow shot of it. Not being too perfectionist. Like I do like that hand done sort of look. You know, when the line's a little bit wobbly. So yeah. So yeah, just cleaning up that chalk.
You're kind of like twisting there you were kind of like twisting the brush as you were going through?
Yeah, like someone described it to me once as when I was getting into mural painting and assisting a bunch of other artists, is kind of using it as like paste. So it's like kind of like pasting over to get a clean line, and you want to kind of do that, sort of load up the brush, not too much and not too little. It's a bit of a thing that he's learnt, again, as a lot of this stuff is. It's trial and error. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah, just going through, cleaning up some of the lines and vice versa.
And do you have to wait a certain amount of time for the like original paint, I guess the other paint to dry? Like, how long does it take before you can start cutting back?
Again, this is a good question, because the weather does sort of come into this aspect of things. Normally, if it's a great sunny day like today, the paint will pretty much dry within 45 minutes of application to an hour. But if it's really cold and the weather is really droopy, like I've had times where I've worked, again, talking about the learning the hard way, I've painted a wall and I've added like all the final touches, and this is probably like at 6 o'clock at night, and then I've come back the next day and the whole artwork is dripped because condensation has come overnight and it's not enabled the paint to dry. So the paint has mixed with the condensation on the wall that naturally comes, and it's just dripped and it's just destroyed the whole body of work. No. So I would be conscious of that sort of thing as well if you're doing work late at night and you're using like house paints and that sort of thing. But with spray paint pretty much dries within like 30 seconds of application. But yeah, with house paints, they usually say like 45 minutes to like an hour, just to be safe. But once you can touch it and it's dry, then I just kind of go on with another layer in a way. So yeah, it's getting pretty late now. I had to pull out like a bit of a floodlight, so apologies on the lighting. But just kind of touching up the final colors in a way, adding a few textures and just cutting back where I need to cut back.
Nice.
So yeah.
There was a question I'll throw in. We've got a couple minutes left. Once your mural is done, how much does it change and evolve over time? Like weathering or anything like that? That's
the end shot there.
Awesome.
Yeah, so good question. With the weather, like depending on where the wall is and what sort of paints you use, I know some brands of spray paints do fade, and you'll see that, when you see like a faded spray painted piece and it looks a bit faded. So especially on an exterior wall, the paint can fade over the years. But if you're using a good quality house paint, it shouldn't really fade. Obviously, if it's been there for 20 plus years, like it will fade and that sort of thing. But like I want to try and put the best into my paint and the longevity of my work, as I want my work to be there for as long as it can.
Absolutely. So, it's awesome. Well, we're looking at the final shot here. That's it looks awesome. It's so cool. Awesome. We're almost out of time. We've only got like a minute left. So I just want to thank you. It came up quick. But yeah, just want to thank you so much. It's great hanging out with you. Like I said, I've been following your work for quite a while now, so it was really nice to hear from you, have you on the show. I know we've been talking about doing this for quite some time, so I'm glad we could do it. I'm glad we could do two.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, absolutely. It was great, and I'm glad we could do a two-parter as well. So if you only caught this one, the other one's over on YouTube. We'll leave some links to them down the bottom. Follow Michael over on Instagram. We'll share that as well, and that's also down the bottom in the description. Check him out and follow his career. I will be. And thank you all in the chat. It's been super awesome. And I just want to do a quick little shout out. Yeah, we will be back again with more live streams. I don't know when. We have been working very hard on Adobe Max. And there's some very familiar faces from Adobe Live that are going to be and have already created some amazing content over there. So keep an eye on that. Make sure you register. It's free this year for the first time ever. It's going to be awesome. There's some big things coming, but we'll be back with more Adobe Live as soon as we possibly can, because I have a blast doing this. So thank you so much. And Michael, thank you once again, and I'll see you around.
Thank you.
See everyone.